Joining me now is White House Domestic Policy Council Director Cecilia Munoz. Thank you very much for joining us. I don't know if you just heard Congressman Cuellar. I can recap it for you, but he said that the president looks like he's disengaged. He decried the optics of him shooting pool and drinking beer in Colorado last night when he's not going a couple of hundred miles from either Austin or Dallas to the border or to visit with the children who are being held on a military base in detention centers.
So I would just point out the president has been engaged, and in fact engaged the entirety of the federal government way back in May when it became clear that the pattern of migration this year was going to be very different compared to previous years. And on June 1st, he announced that he would be asking FEMA to coordinate the Defense Department, the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, and HHS to step up an effort to make sure that we were managing the situation properly. There's a whole host of activities that have taken place since then to make sure that we stay situation.
But you're not ahead of the situation. With all due respect, the reality on the ground is that the administration did not stay ahead of this, that it should have been before May, before June. There were months where this was building up. And the reality is that the White House has been slow to react, and that there is something to be said for presidential optics, if you will, for presidential appearances. That's part of leadership, is it not?
Well, so the leadership is really about making sure that we're being effective in managing the situation, engaging all across the federal government, and engaging with our international partners. So while the president was in Denver last night, his Secretary of Homeland Security was in Guatemala, dealing with the leadership there to make sure that they're doing that they are collaborating with us. The Vice President was in the region on June 20th, also meeting with leaders from the Central American countries, because to acknowledge that everybody has a shared responsibility to make sure that we are stemming this migration, stemming the tide, making sure that we make it clear to parents who are considering putting their children in the hands of smugglers, because the smugglers are misleading them and telling them that they can expect the ability to stay once they get in the United States, that this is false. And that this is an incredibly dangerous journey, that we are only seeing the kids who survive this trip. We are, of course, making sure to take care of them properly. These are children who have gone on a harrowing journey by themselves. But at the end of the day, most of them are not going to qualify for humanitarian relief and will be sent back. The whole of the federal government is engaged in this effort from the president on down.
The reality, though, is, according to our own reporting from Stephanie Goss in Honduras and then in Guatemala, is that the message that is getting through to these kids in some of the most dangerous places on earth is that if you get to the States, you can stay. You can stay at least long enough to go through the deportation process. It can take a year. It can take 2 years. I know today that the Justice Department, the Deputy General, has taken steps to try to speed this up, to throw more money at it. But at the same time, that's not the message that's getting to them south of the border. And you've got a crisis on the border. Let me just play what a Democratic congressman from Texas just moments ago told me.
The optics and the substance of it is that he should show up at the border. He can just look aloof and detach and not go to the border, send surrogates down there and say that he's got everything under control.
I mean, I know the White House can say he's not going to just play politics with this, but leadership does involve showing the concern. He went to with Hurricane Sandy. He went and met with Chris Christie and showed his concern for the Jersey Shore. And people are asking, including this Democratic congressman, one of your own members, why he is looking so aloof and why ever he decided to play pool last night in Colorado.
So the president spoke in the Rose Garden about this situation more than a week ago. He's spoken about this situation on national television, and he's mobilized all of the federal government. At the end of the day, he's less concerned about optics and more concerned about substance and more concerned about impact, making sure that we're properly housing these kids, making sure that we're surging our resources to the border to make sure that we can put kids through these removal proceedings as quickly as possible. It's not in their interest for this process to take a year, 2 years, or even longer. That's why the president sent a request for supplemental appropriations to the Congress just yesterday, asking for more resources so that we can have more asylum officers, immigration judges, more resources to help our partners in Central America present both a strong message and a clear deterrent, but also to build repatriation centers for those children who are going to be sent back to make sure they can be reintegrated safely into the communities that they come from.
Well, so far the politics aren't working and the substance isn't working. flow. And so somebody's got to revisit this. I know that, you know, your unfortunate job is to say what has been done, but what has been done so far has not stemmed the flow. And you can say it, you know, the White House can say it all they want, but at some point people are going to ask, and right now your own Democrats on the Hill are asking, why this was permitted to happen to get to this stage.
We're sending